My name is Bosiame. I head up strategic relationships at Mason Foundation Cluster within Old Mutual Limited. It is a great privilege to deliver this view from Old Mutual as we reflected on COVID-19 and its impacts on the manufacturing industry and the financial well-being of the community therein. Like many other countries worldwide, the South African economy has been hit hard by COVID-19, increasing the pressure on an already strained economy. The manufacturing sector, seen as a key enabler of economic recovery from an employment growth perspective, a leading employer within the market within which we as Old Mutual operate, remains a key focus for all involved stakeholders, from government to community NGOs, to academia, and also from a global economic community at large. The sector within South Africa employs 1.2 million people, and it contributes well over 12% to our GDP. And this is particularly of interest to Old Mutual because the largest employed population falls within individuals who earn below 30,000 Rand a month. The most vulnerable of these communities are of particular interest to our Mason Foundation business. The manufacturing industry and its performance and its ebbs and flows are of keen interest to Old Mutual, where we saw production falling by 11%, and total sales declining by 9.9% in 2020 when compared to the previous year. It became an industry that we invested in studying a little bit more of and getting to understand all the stakeholders who operate within this industry, because it is no longer an industry that we used to know. And the changes and the challenges of the pandemic is forcing this industry to reimagine itself as to what will it become for a thriving South African economy tomorrow. And this is where the role of lifting our heads and looking over the horizon to understand what are those changes that are driving employment trends, financial well-being trends, become part of the critical conversation we need to be having with the industry and players like yourselves within the industry. The South African economy is estimated to have contracted by 7.5% in 2020, partially due to the weak manufacturing production trends throughout the year, as a result of low capacity utilization of producing companies under stringent COVID-19 lockdown levels. At the start of the pandemic, we realized that as Old Mutual, and we then set up various schemes to assist small companies of various sizes as well, to ensure that they remain operational and possibly limit the impacts on those companies, because we wanted to see more of our partners actually live to see the low tide go away and to see better times return to our country. These initiatives or schemes include 100 billion Rand for protection of jobs and to create jobs, which was made available through various industry bodies, 40 billion Rand for income support payments for workers whose employers were under financial strain and were unable to pay their wages. Old Mutual Insure, our short-term insurance arm, set aside 40 million Rand to assist qualifying SMEs to remain solvent in these difficult times. We are happy to have done very little that we could have with limited resources. These resources were expressed through interest-free loans, which were granted to qualifying businesses and were administered through our Old Mutual Masisizane Fund, and will continue to be administered in collaboration with Old Mutual Insure. Another 10 million Rand was set aside to help Old Mutual Insure suppliers and service providers who do business with Old Mutual to remain operational. For example, micro enterprises who supply and conduct services such as the servicing and maintenance or cleaning of our canteens, our car wash teams, they were supported. They were provided provisional funding at the inception of the hard lockdown. Old Mutual's OMSIM results then raised a view or a lens that gave us a closer view as to what was happening with our customers. And it indicated that whilst the vast majority appreciated the heightened need for protection and long-term cover with the increased mortality rates, it didn't necessarily translate into a strong take-up of risk solutions, funeral plans, etc. The financial pressures that they had prior to a lockdown levels of the pandemic was still felt during the pandemic and were even to certain extents amplified, which saw the movement around our risk product uptake actually becoming stagnant. And the movement was in the other direction as people started cutting back due to affordability issues. The policies they had started being the first considerations as people looked to survive the day. 2021 sees the continuation of an increasing trend, which we saw around informal savings such as stokvels, where the average contribution rates are increasing over time. These are not only inflationary increases, but are also a reflection of the increasing number of stokvels that are popping up and savings clubs that members are belonging to. This cuts across all income segmentation or income demographics within the market. As incomes are cut and constraints on demands or demands on the purse increase, especially as friends and family reach out to each other for help. So households resort to various strategies to cope. These strategies range from cost cutting, accessing existing or new credit lines, dipping into savings and just not paying bills at all. The main actions that have been taken, looking back at our 2021 results, is the taking advantage of rewards programs where they are suddenly being seen as opportunities to augment the household expense, and dipping into those long, hard-earned savings or emergency savings buckets, should you be in the fortunate position to have one, borrowing from friends and family who are well off, who are better off, and letting store card payments lapse. It must be noted that even if the family and friends are not better off, they take on that burden or that challenge with each other to see the day through, which is resulting in pressures from one household going into the other. Overall, the community is impacted. But these increases were significant in 2020 to 2021 in relation to, as I mentioned, loyalty programs are being used up. They are being taken up. Those points are suddenly coming in useful on the day. We're seeing a growth in personal loans being taken up, and borrowing from family and friends is also growing. And that's why communication around money matters from a financial education perspective, whether also from a husband-wife point of view, and all those intricacies becomes a crucial element to the shifts that we're making from a financial education perspective. The talk about money is not always the easiest one to have in households. Can you imagine now where family and friends are starting to actually have a need to have a serious conversation about that? Millions of South Africans are feeling this pressure, and it's due to the lockdown levels, decreased level business production levels, as well as a COVID-19 pandemic that seems to be gradually easing as vaccination levels continue to increase. But South Africans are continuing to take a much closer look at the way they manage their money, and many are moving to adapt their lifestyles to survive. We've seen that in the last 18 months, this has led to some behavioral shifts that could have a negative long-term impact and long-term consequences on the financial stability of the household. That 43% increase in personal loans being taken up from financial institutions shows a growth in debt consumption, which is a concern because income is also unstable. 25% have had to cut down on car or household insurance and move to cheaper options, which means that the just-in-case insurance, should anything happen, that emergency backup that you actually have is now no longer there as a safety net for 43% of some of the households that have opted to not necessarily only go for the cheaper option, but to actually put the cover on hold. What's most concerning is a 20% cut down on medical aid cover when we need it most, simply because of the financial pressures individuals are under. And education around these choices is something that is fundamental to the industry, because we are seeing a trend that indebtedness is likely to continue to rise as we recover as householders and individuals. Considering that 54% have dipped into their savings to make ends meet, and that 34% have started to fall behind on household bills, and that there's a 34% of our community that has borrowed from each other. These are concerning trends, which we feel, through education and in partnership with the industry, its captains of industry, we can assist in alleviating these impacts on our communities jointly. And for working South Africans, the pressure to support or at least be there for our friends and our family will persist because of our culture. And the sandwich generation continues to grow, which is seen now at 43%. As employers and as industry captains, we look to partner with yourselves to understand the changing landscape within which the manufacturing industry finds itself in, but most importantly, insulate the impact on the financial well-being and levels of financial stability within our communities. And as we look to the recovery of the South African economy, of the impact on the financial well-being of our community, to you as an industry, to you as industry captains, the employees who are at the heart of your businesses and the communities within which we operate, we at Old Mutual remain resolute in our commitment to be a certain friend in uncertain times as we chart the recovery journey for the manufacturing industry to weather the headwinds which are impacting the South African economy and our future overall. Thank you.